Students, we are about to begin our CLC for tonight. We have maybe a second or two remaining. I do see that Paro has joined us. I'm not too sure about anyone else tonight, but we are going to begin, and I want to welcome you to this, our last tutorial for this semester for English First Additional Language. Just to get us started, I'd like Paro to unmute their computers and then just say who you are and introduce yourselves.
You must unmute too.
If you can just unmute your computers. And hi there.
Hi, Peter.
And who am I speaking to?
Oh, sorry. Hi, this is Emma from the Paro Lighthouse CLC.
Welcome, Emma. Glad to have you this evening.
Yes, I hope it's nice that it's just the two of us. We can have a conversation.
Welcome, of course. And who's the gentleman with you?
This is our pastor at the church. This is Pastor Johan.
Good evening, Johan.
I'm just one of the mentors. I'm leaving now. She's fine to go on.
All right. Glad to have you just for a bit, but you're welcome to stay. Okay. Good evening, students. Those of you who are going to be accessing this tutorial on video during the course of the week, I invite you now to take this time as essential in rounding up the semester for English First Additional Language for the ADT program. I'm also going to invite those who might be at home tonight watching through their laptops or accessing the Q&A. You're most welcome to participate. Also use group chats to send through your comments, your questions, your queries, and make best of this evening. I'm really pleased to see that Emma's with us, and I'm going to start. There are a couple of things that you're going to need to do during the course of our time together. But more of all, I'm going to do a brief recap of what we have done so far, and I'm going to round up by looking at an approach to teaching writing coming out of the last assignment, where we focused on a very simple case study, but with huge influence and impact on how we as teachers should approach writing. I will round up the evening by giving you a chance to reflect and think back to what this term has been about as you prepare for your last assignment as well. So without much further ado, I'd like to just bring up the PowerPoint for tonight. Okay, and just to introduce that to you, that though this is our last tutorial for the semester, it is also going to round up Unit 5 and Unit 6 as a conclusion to what we have been doing. So in welcoming you this evening, I'd like to start with an icebreaker. I'd like you to take a piece of paper, or you're welcome to use your laptops, and a pencil, which is a little bit easier than a pen, but if you don't have a pencil, it's fine, you can use a pen. And on my cue, when I say begin, I'd like you to start writing. Don't stop until I tell you to, for about 2 minutes. I don't want you to worry about a topic to write on, how your handwriting is going to look, or your spelling. When I say begin for about 2 minutes, I'd like you to write, don't think. Begin. You still have a minute to go. Just keep writing. Okay, and this is the hardest thing to do as a teacher, to tell you to stop. But we will pick up, and it doesn't matter if you didn't finish your last sentence, but we will pick up again at the end of our tutorial back to this piece. So I'd like you to just save what you have written, and we will get back to it in a bit. Okay, and let's proceed with the rest of our presentation tonight. Okay, fine. Thanks for bearing with us. I need to get back to my slide here. All right, there seems to be a little glitch in the studio. Just give me a moment. I need my screen share.
So just give me this. Oh, no, the next one.
Okay, yeah. Just bear with us. We will be on air in a minute or so. Bearing with us. We seem to have lost our. We seem to have several windows open.
Yeah, there seems to be a
little glitch in the studio. Just give me a moment. Okay, we're almost there. Okay, I don't seem to be getting my screen share. Only in a minute or so.
just come on.
Let me just write the macro.
No, stop.
He seems to have lost my.
Just go with it.
Yeah. Okay, just. I do apologize for this breakdown, but we seem to have lost our screen share menu, but we will get back to you as soon as we're able to. Just bear with us in a minute or two. We'll all right, I think we're back. We had quite a breakdown, and we still seem to be having trouble with our screen share. So if you could just bear with us, I will be with you in a bit. All right, I think we're back. We had quite a breakdown, and we still see completely off.
Now you've gone completely off.
And we are still mute. Okay, there you go. Just start that. Just press here. Just yeah.
Yes, taking them. Okay. Right foot. So slow. Oh, sorry.
Okay, please just wave a hand if you can hear me now. Thank you. All right, thanks for bearing with us. We seem to have some gremlins in the studio, but let's proceed. Okay, let's recap what we have covered so far. This is one activity that I shared with you during the course of our semester, the KWL approach to looking at what we have covered. It's a tool for looking at reflecting and on feedback. If you can quickly draw 3 columns, either on your computer or on a piece of paper, and label each column against the K, which would stand for what you know, the W, what you would still like to know, and the L, which is about what you have learned. We're going to complete very quickly and briefly a reflection of what we've covered during this semester. Under the following headings, I'm going to lead you through it. So if you don't complete all of it, it's okay for this evening, but certainly I encourage you to reflect as you round up the semester, looking back at the various aspects that we have covered so far. In Unit 1, we looked at what is first additional language. And some of the things we focused on were bilingualism. If you remember, the first assignment, our discussion forum, looked at multilingualism, various teaching approaches, theories and methods of teaching first additional languages, and we looked at some terminology that arose during that first unit, BICS, CALP, LOLT, HL, which stands for home language. Just very briefly against your KWL, try and complete a few of your thoughts as you think back to the first unit. Perhaps you remember compound and constructive bilingualism. Perhaps you can remember the various teaching approaches we looked at. Communicative teaching approach, where BICS and CALP was quite a big section. So if you can complete one or two things in your KWL table, reflecting on Unit 1, I'll give you a few minutes to do that now. And then Unit 2 looked at listening and speaking. As you continue with your reflection using the KWL approach, can you think back to your first assignment on differentiating between hearing and listening? Our tutorial that focused on the different stages and processes of listening, elements of listening, the levels of listening, types of listening, barriers to listening, especially with regards to the Elson child. So if you can just write, perhaps you have something you would still like to know about this, something you can be sure of that you have learned from your experience of your research and your writing up of your first assignment on listening. Unit 3 also looked at an approach to teaching listening and speaking, a holistic approach to reading, speaking, and listening that we focused on when we looked at a model called the 4 resources model of teaching literacy by Luke and Freebody. If you can think back to our CLC that looked at a holistic approach to teaching literacy through this model, where we had 4 resources presented by these 2 professors from Australia who developed a critical teaching approach to literacy. And as you continue your KWL, can you think back to Bloom's taxonomy and the hierarchies of comprehension that we looked at in terms of reading and viewing, focusing on the different applications of thinking skills. And Bloom's taxonomy in the main, looking at different verbs that could be used to develop questions for higher order thinking skills. I have skipped Unit 5 because tonight is going to focus a little bit on Unit 5. But Unit 6 is about language structure and convention. And you have just completed an assignment looking at developing a curriculum around grammar, vocabulary, and spelling. Using the CAPS documents for the intermediate phase, you have been busy with preparing a simple but effective instrument that you as a teacher could refer to with regards to what kind of grammar, what kind of vocabulary, and what kind of spelling is needed in the curriculum for a grade 4, 5, or 6 pupil. Assignment 3 asked you to critique after the formulation of a table, the various aspects that is needed for first additional language learning and teaching. Before we move on to Unit 5, I'm going to give you an opportunity to send through your questions. Under the K, you probably are able to have quite a few things that you know already about these various aspects in teaching first additional language. Under the W, perhaps you have a few questions you'd like to raise. I will be most welcome to answer them now or even during the course of our tutorial. If they require in-depth responses, I'm willing to take it up even afterward. And then what have you learned? If you were able to write extensively on that for now, that would be brilliant, but if you can think back to the things that you have gained, your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience from this semester, and then you must be proud of that. So I'm going to open a few minutes now for you to respond. Perhaps you can write in using the Q&A or the group chat, but certainly just as a response, a comment or two from Parol. Emma, perhaps you can unmute and just give a brief feedback. Were you able to complete the table even briefly?
Hi Desiree, yes, I am still looking at the table and trying to think back of everything that I've learned, but bilingualism stood out for me. I know it's only just one of the things you just mentioned and it's from the first unit, but it's something that really interests me. So that's something I really try to read up a lot on and that I really enjoy learning about.
That's excellent. Thanks for that. What about under your W column? Was there anything that you found was blurry or vague that you would like to pick up again?
I think the difference between teaching approaches and teaching methods, like it's very similar to me. So that's one thing that I, just looking at the things that you wrote down on the PowerPoint now that stood out for me, that I still struggle to discern between the two because they're pretty similar to me.
Yes.
The teaching teaching and the approaches to teaching, but they're also different. It's just sometimes.
Just a very quick response, and you certainly can explore that even further, but just from my perspective, for me as a teacher, an approach is what to do and a method is how to do it. Just a very simple differentiation, if it makes sense to you. Of course, it's more complex than that, but just in terms of a practitioner's point of view, I would say an approach is what to do, and a methodology or a method is how to go about doing that. Don't mix it up with curriculum in terms of the content and so forth. But just as an approach, for me, a very quick response would be a what and a how differentiation, if that helps. And what about the last one? What have you learned? Just a few thoughts there.
I think I'm still learning, trying to take through it. I can't think of one specific thing that I've learned now, but I'm really interested in the 4 skills, like the speaking, listening, reading, writing. So I was a language teacher in South Korea, and those are the 4 aspects of learning English or teaching English that we focused on the most. So it was after teaching there for 2 years and then taking this course, it was really interesting to read up on, the different skills and how to teach them to children who are taking English as an additional language, as opposed to students who take English as a foreign language, because there's such a difference between the two.
Yeah.
Big difference. So I guess, I'm still learning.
Thank you so much for that input, Emma, and you come with that wealth of experience to make that contrast. So appreciate your sharing your KWL tonight. I'm not too sure if there are others. Do you have another question? Yeah? Okay, so as we continue tonight, I would encourage you to constantly work through your KWL, because you're always adding and scaffolding the knowledge that you have already in making a first additional language solid and established, not just for you, the teacher, but even in preparing you for your students. Unit 5 focuses on writing and presenting, and I want to very quickly share with you an approach of teaching writing also that takes into account first additional language levels and a holistic approach to teaching writing. And when one looks at the word holistic, one doesn't just think about demographics and diversity and so forth, but even within the subject matter. For us in English or in a language, we're looking at reading, writing, speaking, listening as a holistic approach that puts the teaching of the content into a context to make our lessons come alive, to make it meaningful, to be successful teachers and certainly produce students who are confident and are able to do what we expect them to do and to learn. So this approach is called writing workshop. It's not just a workshop. The approach is called writing workshop. And very briefly, this is what it entails. We know that writing is one of the hardest areas to teach. Research shows that. We also know that children love to write, but hate writing. We also know that most schools do not fully prepare children, and this is based on research. Traditional writing classes often destroy the love for writing, then deliver a joy and a pleasure in developing children to be able to write confidently. We know that children are told what to write and how to write. Assessments is often based on assumptions and is very subjective, one of the hardest things to do. And because there are a set number of pieces that the curriculum calls for, it denies proper time for revision of work. And when I talk to revision of work, I'm referring to the writing process, from drafting to generating a first draft, a second draft, into revising, and finally editing. Writing workshop is an approach, and it's based on the premise that every child can be a writer. It has a constructivist approach to teaching reading and writing, and it's based on best practice. It takes cognizance of children's learning styles, and it uses the teacher as a model for writing. Writing workshop has an author's approach to writing. It is taught, and it allows for full pupil involvement and ownership of the writing process. Why approach writing from the view of a workshop? During this time, children own the writing process. We know that writing is key to thinking and doing. Teachers lead by their own example. Children follow examples of masters, and when I mean masters, other authors. Reading and writing complement each other. There is a context and relevance that leads to making meaning. There is a freedom to discover and explore identity and purpose, and through writing workshop, higher order thinking skills are engaged in. It also awakens an awareness to multidimensional levels of interaction. How does it work? Through actually planning routine times where children can participate in writing at a given time in a set way, almost like a ritual. Many lessons are taught where during the many lessons children learn a different writing craft and are able to use that craft in the writing sessions that they engage in. They also keep something called a writer's notebook. They listen and share their writings. They collect, draft, revise, reflect, review, and publish their writings. So a process is involved. This is a hard one for a class of 30, but the aim is to have a one-on-one conference between the teacher and the child in sharing what they have written and to speak about what they have written. And then the piece is evaluated. Writer's notebook is a huge part of the writing process. It's a pre-writing tool whereby ideas are seeded. So children can write down whatever inspires them at any given time, something that they see or touch or taste or smell or hear, and they make notes of it in their writer's notebook in order to gain ideas later on for fuller writing pieces. There's a sense of belonging and ownership that the child has with regards to their writing. It's a place where they meet their significance. It's a non-threatening way to teach writing, especially with learners with difficulties, either to interact or to write. It gives writing a sense of purpose and place. It's a reference tool that's accessible anytime to the child. It's an ongoing and ever available instrument. It's a place where learners can live as authors. Basically, it's a collection of short writings stimulated during formal and informal times. And it's a personal possession that each learner can have. The thoughts around and the theory behind this approach to teaching writing come from many exponents. On the screen are some of the more familiar and well-known names. Ray Fletcher, among others, has written a lot of information on teaching writing through this approach. When does writing workshop happen? It is timetabled by the teacher, it's structured, it's led and owned by the learners but led by the teacher. It's based on curriculum standards. In other words, you can work within CAPS quite easily. You can write anytime informally, and you can write across the curriculum. It's a lifelong learning tool, and it impacts on thinking and learning and doing all the time. How do you get started? It's a process that is purposeful. It involves a process, and students, learners own the process. You need to get support, not only from your students, but also from the principal, the parents, others if needed. You may need to inform teachers about it. It involves being flexible. It involves having resources in order to engage students either through teaching aids or visual stimulus. You can also gain the support of the media teacher. It involves using books. And it involves looking at how authors have written in order to mentor the text around others. The most important thing is about trusting that it will work and giving it a chance, because it is time well spent. One of the main gains for trusting the process is that it gets children, young children, writing in a confident and firm and yet fun way. One of the main things about the method of how this approach is applied in the classroom is using writings from reading that children would be engaged in at their level. So the library books that they read, or the classroom readers that they have, or even just short texts and paragraphs and other reading material, is studied for various aspects. And that concept is called mining. During this time, such craft as character development, storyline, show, don't tell, in other words, the use of inference, figurative speech, exact nouns and vivid verbs, among other things, help children to identify from what they're reading these aspects in order to use them in their own writing. In conclusion, I'd like you, just as we round up this part of our address, is to go back to that piece that I asked you to write at the beginning for 2 minutes without stopping. And I said to you, don't worry about your handwriting, your spelling, even the grammar. But I just want you to quickly identify among the various things that you wrote. We'll come to a topic in a minute. Did you place your writing in a setting? Did you have a place where that piece had its context? Did you have a setting? Was there a time that you gave it? Perhaps this evening, or a year ago, or once upon a time, however you started. Did you have a time during when the the details of whatever it is you wrote? Did it have a time frame that you placed your writing in? Did you have a character there? Maybe more than one? Perhaps it was an I, or a him, or an it, or even an animal. Was there some kind of character? I don't think you had enough time to develop a plot with a beginning, a middle, and an end. But I'm certain that you have something of a plot happening, something enough to develop into. And then, what was your very first line like? How did you open your writing? Just a few craft that writing is about, without even thinking about a topic. And even if you put a topic, a heading, what would you call your piece? Now, certainly it's not ready for publishing or even for sale, but it's something that you did that belongs to you. You owned that moment. You wrote from the vast depths of your own mind and imagination, whatever it is that inspired you to put whatever it is that you wrote down in that very brief time. You can always get back to it and expand it. You can always refashion it and rewrite it because it's yours. I'm going to ask a few of you, if you can send it through, it would be lovely to read what you've written. Don't worry about the handwriting, spelling, and so forth. But Emma, can I ask you if you're brave enough to read what you wrote to us? It's not for an assessment, so don't be daunted.
Okay, would you like me to read it to you now?
Yes.
Okay, it's really weird though.
Of course.
Okay, here goes. Alright. Hello, hello, hello. Is it me you're looking for? I have no idea what else to write. I'm in need of vengeance and I'm also quite hungry. Quesadilla is waiting at home. I also feel like singing right now. Jeremiah was a bullfrog. He was a good friend of mine. Haha, the irony. Nothing to hide in this free writing exercise. It's the easiest psychoanalysis you would ever perform. Love lost is love gained. I hope so. I really, really do. I wonder if the queen talks to her corgis. Do they bark like mad? It makes no sense, but it does. It doesn't make any sense.
Wow. Wow. If you had to pick up 3 themes that you would say that your writing captured, what would be 3 themes there?
Well,
now, not for a grade 4 learner. This is for you.
Definitely not. It just kind of, like, I really struggle to keep my emotions in, so I'm very much a BA person, and this, like, it just completely mimics the way I'm feeling right now. So it is very much kind of reflection on what I'm going through right now in my life. And the characters obviously me, and the time and the places right now. What else can I comment on? Yeah, no, it's just a reflection of what I'm going through right now. It's a bit of a diary entry.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. And I was going to say the genre that you approached that piece is a reflection. It's a reflective piece. And yes, one would call it a diary, but it's more than just a diary. It's the start of something. And that is what seeding ideas are all about. Take away the pressure of the spelling and the handwriting and the grammar, and you will get to who you are. And it's from there you could write a story about Tim or John or anybody else based on what you've just written. You could write a historical creative non-fiction on the Queen and her corgis. Why not? There's several genres that can come out of that. But certainly it could even be published as a short story, who's to say? And I think it's got some qualities of poetry as well. You could take either the love interest or the hunger and write a reflective poem on it, if not a sonnet.
The way I'm feeling right now, I'd probably just focus on the vengeance and the hunger.
That was very interesting. That was very interesting. It makes for a very complicated plot because I didn't understand where the vengeance fitted in, but well done. It's what Shakespeare is all about, isn't that so?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. And that's, surely that's for grown-up kids at high school. But what stops us from exploring our younger kids in developing these themes in their own life, because they do experience them at their level. And as you go around it and go about it, you will be teaching them to get to the depths of their writing skills, just to get them writing. And it may start off as a diary, as Melissa Lamb did. If you think about that case study, she got them writing diaries. But what she was really doing was delving into the depths of their writing skills. And she did use mentor texts as well. She used other writings and books to write from. It's one of the things that I often get students to do, is to just write and not think of a topic. And the topic emerges, just to get the first draft going. Because quite often children, if you give them a topic, they'd say they don't know what to write. But if you start off without those conventions, you will release the writing, and then you can then narrow it down and direct them into what they have to do. So as we bring this time to a close, I'd like you just in saying thank you for participating tonight and for your participation and your involvement during the semester. I hope that this time has been profitable and that you have been professionally prepared to continue what you are doing in the best way that you can. And remember, it's not all in the assessments. Balance the assessments with your learning as well. So in approaching your classrooms, remember your children are coming in there not as empty vessels. They already know lots. It's just that they have to be skilled and groomed and molded to take them further. So hopefully this module has been a learning curve for you, as it has been for me. And in concluding tonight and saying thank you, I have a quote, but I want to say it's not just in writing, it's in speaking and reading and viewing, and the holistic approach to teaching languages across the board that we are about. So thank you for your participation, and I wish you well for the rest of the semester and for the rest of your modules as well. Good night.